Part 1. It was a typical day, and I decided to take a walk in the park to clear my mind. My daughter, Sarah, had been on my mind lately, and I couldn't shake the unease I had about her actions. But what happened next would change everything. As I sat on a bench, suddenly the world around me began to spin. My body went limp, and before I knew it, I collapsed. I felt my heart racing as I struggled to stay conscious. When I opened my eyes, I was greeted by a paramedic, cutting off my beloved watch. "Stop! What are you doing?" I gasped, trying to regain my bearings. "That watch. My daughter gave me that," I managed to say between breaths. The paramedic's face softened, and he leaned in close, whispering something that I would never forget. "That's why you're dying," he said, his voice low. "Your daughter isn't who you think she is. Look." My blood ran cold as I stared into the paramedic's eyes, waiting for him to explain. What could this man possibly mean? How did he know about Sarah? How could my daughter be the cause of my sudden collapse? Stay tuned, because what happens next will leave you stunned. And don't forget to subscribe for more incredible stories like this one. And hit the notification bell so you never miss an update. It's time to uncover the truth. Part 2. As I lay there on the park bench, struggling to keep my eyes open, the paramedic's words echoed in my mind. "Your daughter isn't who you think she is. Look." The fear in his voice made me question everything I thought I knew about my family, especially my daughter Sarah. I tried to sit up, my heart racing with the confusion and dread I felt. "What do you mean?" I croaked, still barely able to grasp what had just happened. I had always believed Sarah was a caring daughter. Sure, she had her moments. But what father doesn't go through ups and downs with their kids? The paramedic hesitated for a moment, clearly contemplating whether or not to share more. Finally, he spoke again, his voice grave. "Sir, your daughter might be involved in something much darker than you realize. Something that could have cost you your life today." I felt a cold chill run down my spine. My head was spinning as I struggled to comprehend what he was implying. Was Sarah really capable of something like this? Was I really at risk? "You need to go home," the paramedic urged, standing up and reaching for his medical bag. "But don't go back to that house alone. Not until you know the truth." As the paramedic prepared to leave, I felt a sense of urgency like never before. I had to find out what was going on, what exactly Sarah was hiding from me. The world around me was starting to feel like a nightmare, and I wasn't sure who to trust anymore. I stumbled to my feet and managed to walk back to my car, the weight of the paramedic's words sinking in. "Look," he had said. What did he mean by that? And why did he single out Sarah? Little did I know, the discovery I was about to make would turn my world upside down. I couldn't shake the feeling that the man had just given me a glimpse into something much darker than I could have ever imagined. Stay tuned for Part 3, where the shocking truth about my daughter's secrets is revealed. Don't forget to subscribe and hit the notification bell so you won't miss the next chapter in this unforgettable story. You won't believe what happens next. Part 3. I couldn't stop thinking about the paramedic's words as I drove home. What did he mean by "your daughter isn't who you think she is"? And why did he sound so urgent? The words echoed in my mind over and over again, becoming more and more unsettling with every passing second. My heart was pounding in my chest, my hands gripping the steering wheel as I navigated through the streets. The drive felt longer than it ever had before. When I finally arrived home, my legs felt weak as I stepped out of the car. I was still dizzy, but the adrenaline coursing through me was enough to push me forward. I knew I had to find out what was going on. I needed answers. I took a deep breath and made my way inside. The house was quiet, eerily so, as if the walls themselves were holding secrets. It didn't feel like my home anymore. It felt foreign. Everything looked the same, but something was different. Maybe it was the atmosphere, the way it seemed to be suffocating me. I called out for Sarah. "Sarah, are you here?" No response. I walked further into the house, heading straight for her room. The door was ajar, and I pushed it open. To my surprise, the room was empty, but there was something strange on her desk, papers, scattered in a disorganized pile. As I stepped closer, I noticed a small black notebook hidden under a pile of documents. It looked out of place, almost like it was meant to be overlooked. Without thinking, I picked it up. It felt heavier than I expected. I flipped open the cover, and what I saw inside made my stomach turn. The pages were filled with names, addresses, and dates, nothing that made sense to me at first. But then I came across something that stopped me in my tracks. It was a list, a detailed one, with dates and times of meetings. And in the margin, written in Sarah's handwriting, were a series of cryptic notes. Meet with Michael, pick up the package. Deliver tomorrow, make sure it's all done before noon. Call when everything is set, this can't go wrong. I felt my breath catch in my throat. I could barely process what I was reading. What was she involved in? Why was she writing this down? The details were too specific, too calculated. And the name Michael. It sent a cold shiver down my spine. Was Michael the same person the paramedic had been talking about? What had my daughter gotten herself mixed up in? I couldn't keep standing there, the fear and confusion too overwhelming. I slammed the notebook shut and backed away, my heart pounding in my chest. My mind was racing. I had to confront her, but I wasn't sure I was ready for what she was going to say. Before I could make any decisions, I heard the sound of footsteps behind me. I turned around quickly, and there she was, Sarah, standing in the doorway, her eyes wide in surprise. "Dad, what are you doing in my room?" she asked, her voice laced with tension. I froze, unsure how to respond. I had no idea what to say. My heart was pounding in my chest, and I could feel the weight of the notebook in my hand. I had so many questions, but I didn't know where to start. "Why is this in your room?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper as I held up the notebook. Her face turned pale, and for the briefest moment, I saw something flicker in her eyes. Guilt, fear, maybe even a hint of regret. She opened her mouth, but no words came out. I took a deep breath, my voice shaking. "Sarah, what's going on? What are you involved in?" She swallowed hard, her gaze shifting nervously between me and the notebook. She hesitated for a long moment before speaking, her voice barely audible. I didn't want you to know. I didn't want you to find out this way." "Find out what? What is this? What are you hiding?" I demanded, my frustration boiling over. Sarah looked down at the floor, her shoulders trembling. Finally, she spoke, her voice small and filled with shame. "Dad, I'm involved with some people. Bad people. People who aren't who they say they are." The words felt like a punch to the gut. I couldn't comprehend what I was hearing. My daughter, my baby girl, had gotten herself tangled up with dangerous people? I had to know more. "Who? What do you mean by bad people?" I asked, taking a step closer, my voice softer now. She took a deep breath, as if gathering the strength to tell me the truth. I didn't want to. But they had leverage. I was scared. They told me that if I didn't do what they asked, they would hurt you. Hurt the family. So I did what they wanted. I could feel the world spinning around me. "What do you mean, hurt the family? Who are these people?" Sarah's eyes welled up with tears, but she didn't look away. "I'm involved in a criminal organization. They're using me to get what they want. And I'm scared, Dad. I don't know what to do." I stood there in shock, unable to move. My daughter, the person I had always protected, the person I thought I knew so well, was caught up in something dangerous and beyond my control. I didn't know how to react. "Why didn't you come to me?" I whispered, my heart aching. "Why didn't you ask for help?" "I was too afraid, Dad. I didn't want you to get hurt. I didn't want anyone to know." Her voice cracked as the tears started to fall. It was a moment I would never forget, standing there with my daughter, who had made a choice that had torn our lives apart. I didn't know what the future held, but I knew one thing for sure: I would do whatever it took to protect her, even if it meant going up against the people who were pulling the strings. I took her hand, looking her in the eyes. "We'll fix this, Sarah. We'll get you out of this. I'm not going to let anything happen to you." Stay tuned for part 4 where I start making plans to confront the dangerous people behind Sarah's involvement. It won't be easy, but I'm determined to protect my daughter at all costs. Don't forget to subscribe to stay updated on the rest of this intense journey. Part 4. I stood in the dim light of Sarah's room, the weight of the situation pressing down on me like a physical force. I had thought I knew my daughter, but what she had just confessed shattered my perception of her, and the world she had been living in. I could feel the anger building up inside me. How could she have gotten herself into something like this? Who are these people, Sarah? I asked again, my voice trembling with a mixture of fear and frustration. She wiped her eyes with the back of her hand and took a deep breath. Before speaking again, I can't tell you their names. They are dangerous. They have connections to people you wouldn't want to mess with. And I've done things for them. Things I never wanted to do, but I didn't have a choice. They threatened you and Mom, Dad. I had to play along. My stomach turned. The idea that anyone would use my family as leverage against my own flesh and blood made my blood boil. This wasn't just a betrayal, it was a complete violation of everything I'd tried to protect. I had always been there for Sarah. I had raised her to be strong, independent, and kind. And now, here I was, hearing that she had been dragged into the darkest corners of the criminal world. I wanted to scream, but I knew that wouldn't help. I took a step forward, trying to ground myself, and gently placed my hand on her shoulder. Sarah, you have to understand something. You may feel trapped right now, but you are not alone. You're my daughter, and no matter what happens, I will protect you. I will fix this. She nodded silently, but I could see the fear in her eyes. Fear of the people who had manipulated her, and fear of the consequences of her actions. I didn't know how deep this went, but I knew one thing for sure. I was going to find out. Dad, you can't fix this, she whispered, her voice small and defeated. They are too powerful. I tried to leave, but they wouldn't let me. I've been scared to go to the police because they said they'd hurt you if I did. I don't know who else to turn to. The pain in her voice was more than I could bear. I wanted to tell her everything was going to be okay, but I wasn't sure. What kind of people were we dealing with here? And how far were they willing to go to get what they wanted? I took a deep breath, trying to steady my thoughts. We will go to the police, Sarah. But first, we need a plan. I'll talk to someone who can help. Someone who understands this world better than we do. Her eyes widened in fear. But Dad, they'll come after us. You don't know what they're capable of. They'll make sure we pay for this. I don't want anything to happen to you. I could see the weight of her guilt, the crushing fear that she had gotten us both tangled in this mess. It wasn't her fault, though. She had been manipulated, threatened, and trapped into doing things she never wanted to do. And now, it was my job to get us both out of this situation, no matter the cost. I stood up, a sudden resolve flooding my body. You're not alone, Sarah. I will never leave you in this. Whatever it takes, I will make sure you're safe. I left her room to take action, making my way toward my office where I kept all my personal and professional contacts. This was more than just family drama. It was something far more dangerous, and I needed help from someone who had the right experience. But as I picked up the phone to make that call, something gnawed at me. The things Sarah had mentioned, the shady dealings, the threats, they weren't just idle talk. Whoever was behind this had power, influence, and they weren't going to let go easily. The more I thought about it, the more I realized the true scale of the problem we were dealing with. I wasn't sure who I could trust anymore, but I knew one thing: I had to act fast. My daughter was in deep, and it was up to me to save her. There was no time to waste. As I dialed the number, my mind raced with possibilities. Could I confront these people directly? Should I involve the police now, or wait for the right moment? What if Sarah was being watched? What if we were being tracked? The phone rang 3 times before someone picked up on the other end. Hello, it's David, I said, trying to keep my voice steady. David, it's been a long time, the voice on the other end responded. What's going on? I need help, I said, cutting to the chase. My daughter's been caught up in something dangerous, and I need to know what to do before it's too late. There was a pause, and then the voice spoke again, more seriously. I understand. I'll meet you in 2 hours. I'll bring the right people who can help. I hung up the phone and took a deep breath. Things were about to get a lot more complicated, but I wasn't backing down. Not now. Not ever. Stay tuned for part 5, where we'll uncover the full extent of the threat to Sarah's life and make our first move to fight back. You won't want to miss it. Don't forget to subscribe and stay updated on this intense and unpredictable journey. Part 5, the first move. 2 hours later, I found myself driving through the quiet streets, the weight of the situation heavier with every mile. I couldn't stop thinking about what had happened to Sarah, the fear in her eyes, the guilt, the pressure she must have felt as she got deeper and deeper into this mess. I could see her trying to protect us, but she didn't know how to escape. She didn't realize that sometimes running from the problem only makes it worse. As I pulled up to the designated meeting spot, a discreet cafe on the outskirts of town, I noticed 2 black SUVs parked nearby. I knew this wasn't just an ordinary meeting. It was becoming very real and very dangerous. I stepped out of the car, my heart pounding, and made my way toward the back entrance of the cafe. There, I was greeted by David, an old contact of mine who worked in law enforcement, someone who had connections I could trust. He wasn't just any cop. He was a man who specialized in cases of organized crime, shady deals, and corrupt individuals who thought they were above the law. David gave me a firm handshake, his face serious. "Samuel," he said, his voice low, "we are going to get through this. But you need to understand something. We are dealing with a well-connected group. These people don't just disappear. They won't stop until they've taken everything from you." I nodded, my stomach sinking. I don't care about the money. I care about my daughter. David gave me a grim smile. "That's the right attitude, Samuel. Let's get you the answers you need." We entered the back of the cafe, where a small, dimly lit room was set up with a few chairs and a table. 2 men in suits were already seated, and the tension in the room was palpable. One of them stood up immediately as we walked in, his hand extended. "David," he said, shaking my hand. "Good to see you again. I assume you're here for business." David nodded. "This is Samuel. He's the one we've been talking about." I shook the man's hand, trying to mask my nerves. "I'm here because of my daughter," I said, "and I need to know what I'm dealing with." The man nodded solemnly, then sat back down, signaling for me to take a seat across from him. "We've been monitoring Richard Hale for a while now. His connections go beyond what you're probably thinking. He's not just some random criminal trying to take a house. He's a part of something bigger, something more dangerous. And your daughter was a pawn in that game." I felt my chest tighten as the words sank in. "My daughter, a pawn?" The man continued. "Richard used your daughter as leverage. But that's just the surface of it. He's involved in laundering money for international criminal organizations. He's made a lot of enemies over the years. And now those enemies are closing in." I swallowed hard, my throat dry. "So, what's the plan?" David leaned forward. "We've tracked Richard's movements. He's trying to lay low, but is also making one crucial mistake. He doesn't realize that we've got access to every transaction he's made in the last year. We know where he's been hiding his money, where he's been moving assets, and we know who his partners are. The next step is to pressure him into making a deal, or he'll be exposed for everything." "But how do we get to him?" I asked. "What do I need to do?" David looked at me seriously. "You stay out of it. Let us handle the legal side. But, Samuel, we'll need you to act as bait. Richard has a weak spot, and it's your family. He's arrogant, and he thinks he can control everything. He'll make a move, and when he does, we'll be ready to catch him." I shook my head, uncertain. What if something happens to Sarah? "We'll protect her," David said firmly. "We've already taken precautions, but if we want to get to the heart of this, we need to make him feel the pressure." I was hesitant, but I knew David was right. The only way to end this nightmare was to confront Richard head-on. I couldn't let my daughter suffer any longer. I wasn't about to let him win. Later that evening, I returned home. The house was still silent, but the weight of the conversation lingered in my mind. Daniel was with Lily in the living room, playing a board game, and the sight of them gave me a strange sense of comfort. I couldn't afford to let fear take over. Sarah was out, and I couldn't reach her. I was unsure where she was, but I had to trust that she was safe, for now. The plan was set in motion. All I had to do now was wait. The next morning, my phone rang. It was David. "Samuel, it's time. We've got a lead on Richard's location. You need to get ready. This could be our only shot." I felt my heart race as I picked up my jacket and headed out the door. Today, the game was on, and we were about to take the fight to Richard Hale. And next part. In the final showdown, we confront Richard Hale face to face. Will justice finally be served, or will he outsmart us again? Stay tuned to find out. And remember, subscribe to stay updated on this incredible journey of family, betrayal, and redemption. You won't want to miss the next chapter. Part 6, The Showdown. The streets outside were eerily quiet as I drove with David and the other agents trailing behind me. My thoughts were racing. I wasn't just going to confront Richard. I was going to force him to face everything he had done to my family. His time was running out, and so was mine. I could feel my pulse quicken with each passing second as we neared the warehouse, where Richard had been hiding. The night had fallen, casting long shadows over the street. It was a perfect setting for something dangerous to unfold. David's phone buzzed. He glanced at it quickly, then spoke into his headset. "He's in there. We've got confirmation." I nodded, trying to steady my breathing. My heart was pounding in my chest, but I knew this was the only way to end this nightmare. I parked the car and got out, my eyes scanning the area. The warehouse loomed in front of us, dark, foreboding. I wasn't sure what to expect when we went inside, but I knew one thing for sure. Richard Hale was not going to get away with what he'd done. Not now. David led the way, the other agents following closely behind. I stayed close, but my mind kept racing, trying to make sense of everything that had happened in the past few days. The lies, the manipulation, the way Richard used my daughter and my family as pawns in his game. We reached the door of the warehouse, and David motioned for us to stop. "It's time," he whispered. "Stay close." I nodded. David carefully cracked the door open and motioned for us to follow him inside. The moment we stepped into the warehouse, I felt the cold air hit my skin. The space was massive, with high ceilings and large metal beams. It was silent, except for the faint sound of something moving in the distance. We all moved quickly, trying to remain unseen, but I couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. Then, I saw him. Richard Hale was standing near a metal table, his back to us. He was talking to someone on the phone, his voice low and steady, as if he didn't have a care in the world. I could feel my heart thudding in my chest. "Do we move in?" I whispered to David. He held up his hand, signaling for us to wait. Suddenly, Richard turned, his eyes locking onto mine. He froze. For a brief moment, it was as though time stopped. He knew. He knew the game was up. "Samuel," he sneered, his voice filled with venom. "I should have known you'd show up here. This is the end, isn't it?" I stood my ground, my voice steady but filled with rage. "This is where it ends, Richard. You've ruined enough lives. You don't get to do this anymore." Richard's eyes narrowed. "You think you've won? You think you have the upper hand? I've got friends in high places. You'll never be able to touch me." I stepped forward, my voice firm. "I don't need to touch you, Richard. You've already dug your own grave." His face twisted with anger. "You're a fool." Before he could react, David and the other agents moved in, surrounding him. "Mr. Hale," David said, his voice cold, "you are under arrest for kidnapping, fraud, and a number of other charges. You have the right to remain silent." Richard's face turned pale, his bravado quickly fading. He tried to fight back, but it was too late. The agents were already securing his hands, cuffing him tightly. "No, no, this isn't over. You can't do this to me." Richard shouted, but no one paid attention to his pleas. I watched as they led him out of the warehouse, handcuffed and defeated. For the first time in years, I felt a wave of relief wash over me. The nightmare was finally over. We walked out of the warehouse together, the cool night air settling around us. Daniel and Vanessa were waiting, outside with Lily. She ran toward me as soon as she saw me, her little face lighting up with joy. "Grandpa!" Lily shouted, running into my arms. I hugged her tightly, feeling the weight of the past week lift off my shoulders. "I'm so glad you're safe," I whispered. Daniel stepped forward, his eyes filled with gratitude. "Dad, we are free. It's over." I nodded, looking at him with a sense of pride. He was stronger than I had ever realized. He had been through so much, and yet here he was, standing by my side, ready to move forward. Vanessa smiled, her face a mixture of relief and exhaustion. "Thank you," she said softly. I nodded, but deep down, I knew that this wasn't just about winning a battle. This was about reclaiming the life that Richard had stolen from us, and protecting the family that mattered most. The sun was just beginning to rise, casting a soft glow across the horizon. As I looked around at the people I loved, I felt a deep sense of peace. We had survived. We had fought. And we had won. The end. Stay tuned for more powerful stories and real-life lessons. Don't forget to subscribe to my channel to be part of this incredible journey.